Sorry for whoever was on the web thing because I forgot to hit record to all of that. So, where are we at? Okay. So, moving on to the musculoskeletal system. This is what helps provide our upright posture, our form, our movement, and this also is for protection of the vital internal organs. Part of your musculoskeletal system is the different types of muscles that we have. We have three different kinds. You have the skeletal muscles, which is going to be your voluntary muscle. You have your smooth muscle, or your involuntary. So think GI tract, everything that kind of moves without you telling it to. And then your cardiac muscle. So your heart is a special muscle all by itself. It is automaticious, I think is how you say it, but it is able to, it creates that electricity that helps it go. It is its own special type of muscle that is what causes it to beat. It's the only place you're going to find it. And this is all the muscles of the body, major ones at least. So contraction and relaxation of this system is what makes it possible to move and manipulate the environment. This is a byproduct of this movement is heat. So obviously when you're moving around, you're creating heat. Another function of the muscles are to protect the structures underneath them. Structures of the body that contribute to respiration, we're moving on to the respiratory system. So all these muscles are what is going to help with respiration. Your upper airway consists of your nose, your mouth, your tongue, your jaw, your larynx, pharynx, trachea, esophagus, all the major things. Moving down into the lower airway, this is where you're going to see your thyroid cartilage, otherwise known as your Adam's apple, your carotid cartilage, which is immediately below the thyroid cartilage, and the trachea, which ends at the carina, which divides into both the right and left bronchi leading into the bronchioles. So, here's a good picture. So your carina, so where that blue part ends and kind of breaks off into either the right or left lung, that's the carina. So some muscles of breathing, you have the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles. These are going to be your primary muscles for breathing. Some other muscles that are involved, your neck, the abdominal muscles, pectoral muscles. Some functions of the respiratory system are to obviously provide the body with the oxygen that it needs and to help eliminate carbon dioxide, because oxygen is good, carbon dioxide is bad. That's what we breathe out. Ventilation and respiration are two separate, interdependent functions of the respiratory system. Respiration is the actual exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the alveoli of tissue. So down at the cellular level, very base of the lungs, this is where this respiration happens. This provides oxygen to the cells and removes waste for carbon dioxide. Diffusion is the passive process in which the oxygen molecules move from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. And then your brain stem is what actually is going to control that breathing. Ventilation is the simple air movement into and out of the lungs. So every time you take a breath in and breathe out, that is your ventilation. Things that we can tell from this, we have our tidal volume, so the total amount of air that you are taking in a breath, that is your tidal volume. You have your residual volume, your dead space, and then your minute volume. Does your book kind of go into detail about all those different things? What? A little bit. It's not as much of a need to know on an EMT level. Usually for medics, this is where we really focus with the ventilator and stuff like that, where we have to calculate a bunch of really hard things to try and get like the perfect ventilation settings for somebody. So some characteristics of some normal breathing. Obviously, you want a normal rate and depth, or tidal volume. You want a regular rhythm or pattern of inhalation and exhalation. Clear, audible breath sounds on both sides of the chest. So this is whenever you're going to auscultate those lung sounds. With your stethoscope, go to both sides up here, check on the back, and this is where you just want to hear nice air in, nice air out. So regular rise and fall motion on both sides of the chest, and then some movement of the abdomen. Some inadequate breathing, labored breathing. You're going to start seeing those muscle contractions, especially in the area of the ribs. Pale, cyanotic, cool, damp skin. And what was cyanotic? Blue, turning blue. This is where you'll see people sitting in a tripod position, because leaning forward is what is going to help them breathe more. It makes them feel like they're getting more air in. So they're just going to be leaning forward, trying to catch their breath. And then agonal gasp, or gasping breaths, which obviously from CPR class we know that those are not good breaths, right? Circulatory system. This is a complex arrangement of connected tubes. You have your arteries, arterioles, capillaries, veins, all the things. You have two circuits. You have the systemic circulation, which is what is going to go to the body, and then your pulmonary circulation, which is what is going to the lungs. And this is what it looks like. The heart, like I said before, is made up of your specialized cardiac muscle. It also has two paired pumps. The septum divides both the right and left sides of the heart, and it divides them into the atrium and the ventricle. So you have your atrium, which are your upper chambers. You have your left and your right, and then your ventricles down at the bottom. Again, you have your left and your right there. Circulation, so your heart is going to receive the blood from the aorta. The right side receives the deoxygenated blood from the veins, and the left side receives the oxygenated blood from the lungs. And there is a better description I can give you. For that, so it all makes sense. Just give me a second. So yeah, the oxygenated blood is what returns from the lungs through the pulmonary veins to the left side of the heart, and then is pumped into the aorta and then into the arteries of the body. So left to right. Hey, Ashley. I don't know how much it's going to matter, but I made it through probably about the inside of the bread. So, sorry, I didn't do it. Okay. So your heart, a normal adult resting heart rate is anywhere from 60 to 100 beats per minute. That is obviously going to change for everybody. Nobody is the exact same. This isn't a set number. You have a bradycardic rate starts in the 50s, but I know a lot of healthy adults who have heart rates in the 50s or even in the 40s if they're super athletic and fit and healthy. So it's just the appearance of the person on if it is going to be a good heart rate or a bad heart rate for them. So, but normal textbook test related, normal heart rate, 60 to 100. When dealing with the heart, we have the stroke volume. This is the amount of blood moved by one beat of the heart, so what is being pushed out. And then you have the cardiac output, which is the amount of blood that is moved in an entire minute. So you would take your heart rate times the stroke volume to get cardiac output. Does that make sense? Yes. Moving on, the electrical conduction system causes smooth, coordinated contractions, and these contractions are what produce the pumping action to get the blood throughout the body. Your arteries carry blood from the heart to all of the body tissues. Your pulmonary artery is what carries oxygen or blood to the lungs. Your arteries branch into smaller arteries and then into arterioles, so it just goes down, gets smaller and smaller. The arterioles branch into smaller vessels until they connect to the capillaries. Your pulse is what is created by forceful pumping of blood out of the left ventricle and into the major arteries. So it's that thump that you're feeling. That is the forceful pump. It's palpated most easily at the neck, wrist, or at the groin. So your femoral artery, carotid artery, or radial. Those are going to be the easiest spots you can find them. Unless it's infants or some real skinny people, you can really feel it in the brachial artery there. Some arteries for you. Your capillaries are what connect your arterioles to the venules. This allows contact between blood and the cells. Your veins are what are going to return oxygen-depleted blood back to the heart. You have your superior vena cava, which carries blood returning from the head, neck, shoulders, and upper extremities. And then your inferior vena cava is what's going to bring everything back from the abdomen, pelvis, lower extremities. Moving on to the spleen. This is a solid organ that is located right underneath the rib cage. It helps filter the blood. It is incredibly easy to injure and mostly from blunt trauma. Can lead to some severe internal bleeding. Speaking of blood, it is made up of several different things. It's not just the red stuff that you see. You have the plasma, which is just a liquid, your red blood cells, or erythrocytes. You have your white blood cells, which are called leukocytes, and then you have your platelets. Circulatory system, so your blood pressure is going to be the pressure that blood exerts against the walls of the arteries. So your systolic blood pressure is what is going to occur whenever the left ventricle contracts, and then your diastolic pressure is whenever the left ventricle relaxes. So systolic, diastolic. Systolic is going to be the high point of the wave, diastolic, the low point. And once you guys are in your clinicals at the houses, the crews there are going to really help you listen for blood pressures, help you take them. We did it a couple times the other day. And it's an art. It takes a lot of listening and figuring out, but we'll help you get there. Can be done. So normal circulation in adults is automatically adjusted and controlled. So your perfusion is going to be the circulation of blood in an organ or tissue in adequate amounts to meet the needs of the cells. So your body obviously is going to adjust its circulation however it needs to meet the needs of the cell. Your blood enters organs and tissues through your arteries and leaves them through the veins. Inadequate circulation. So your system can adjust to small amounts of blood loss, but whenever it becomes to large amounts of blood loss, your adjustments start to fail and the patient goes into shock. We'll also call this hypoperfusion because it's low perfusion. Perfusion is good, hypoperfusion, it's not happening. Some functions of the blood, obviously perfusion, like we've said, this is what you want. This is, blood, oxygen, all the good stuff is getting to the organs and the tissues, transporting oxygen, transporting carbon dioxide, eliminating waste, clotting, should there be any sort of bleeding. These are the things that your blood does for you. Any questions about the blood and circulation and all that? Moving on to the nervous system, it is obviously very complex. It deals with all the nerves in your body. It is divided into two different areas. You have your central nervous system, or the CNS, and then you have your peripheral nervous system. Your central nervous system contains your brain. It is the controlling organ of the body. Subsections of your brain, you have your cerebrum, your cerebellum, and your brainstem. And all these different parts of the brain control a ton of different things. I don't know that it goes into that. Moving down to your spinal cord, it is just a continuation of the brain. This is what is going to transmit your messages from the brain to the rest of the body. This is the sending force to tell your body what to do. Peripheral nervous system, you have your somatic nervous system. So this transmits signals from the brain to the voluntary muscles, things that you control. If I want to raise my hand, that is where this happens. If I want to walk around the room, this is where that happens. Your autonomic nervous system is going to be your involuntary actions. And this is also split into two areas. So your involuntary actions being breathing. You have your sympathetic nervous system, which is going to be your fight or flight, and then your parasympathetic nervous system that controls the body or slows the body. You have two types of nerves within the peripheral nervous system. You have your sensory nerves, which carry information from the body to the central nervous system. And then you have your motor nerves, which carry information from the central nervous system to the muscles. So your sensory nerves are saying, hey, this stove is hot, and your motory nerves are saying, take your hand away. And it's physically making that action happen for you. Does that make sense? Going on to the skin, the integumentary system, you have two layers, your epidermis and your dermis. Your epidermis is going to be that more superficial skin right up at the top. Dermis right below that. And below the skin, you have your subcutaneous tissue. This is the fat that insulates and serves as an energy reservoir. So epidermis up at the top, and then you have a bunch of dermis, and then your subcutaneous tissue. So the skin is the largest single organ in the body. There's 3 major functions. It's going to be helping protect the body from the environment, help regulate your body temperature, and then transmit information from the environment to the brain. So obviously we don't want dirt and gunk to enter into our body, so the skin is going to protect us that way. Regulating body temperature, that's obvious because we don't want to get too hot, otherwise we can't function. Don't want to get too cold, otherwise we can't function. And then obviously transmitting that information. So if it is too hot, your skin's going to say, this isn't right, let's start sweating. And that's how that's going to happen. Or shivering whenever you're too cold so that your body heats up. Moving on to the digestive system. Digestion is the processing of food that nourishes the cells. The abdomen is the second major body cavity that you have. It contains major organs for digestion and excretion. You have the right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower, left lower. These are going to be the easiest ways to identify the structures beneath them. So, the right upper quadrant, you're going to have a majority of the portion of your liver, right lower, appendix, spleen, left upper. So this is all going to help you. You know, somebody complains of lower right pain, chances are it's probably going to be their appendix. Somebody complaining of upper left and they just flipped over the handles of their bike or something, well maybe they've done some damage to their liver. So you can really tell a lot about what's going on by what area of the body is hurting. So your digestive system, this is also going to contain the mouth, so lips, cheeks, gums, teeth, tongue, your salivary glands. You've got your oropharynx, your esophagus, stomach, pancreas. All this stuff is what is going to help with digestion and processing of food. You have your liver, which contains the bile ducts, small intestine, large intestine, appendix, rectum. So enzymes are added to the food by the salivary glands, stomach, liver, pancreas, and small intestine. These are what are going to convert your food into your basic sugars, your fatty acids, amino acids, which are going to then be further processed by the liver and then circulated to the blood, by the blood throughout the body. Your lymphatic system, this is what supports the circulatory system and the immune system. The lymph is a thin, straw-colored fluid that carries oxygen and nutrients to the cells and waste products away. This helps rid the body of your toxins and other harmful materials. So it kind of grabs onto them and tries to get them out. That's why your lymph nodes swell whenever you get sick, because the lymphatic system is trying to take those toxins and rid them. So like whenever you get strep throat or whatever and you notice that your neck is really swollen right here, so you have some big lymph nodes up there. The endocrine system, this is complex message and control system. It integrates many body functions. Your hormones are released directly into the bloodstream through this, and each hormone has a specific effect on some organ, tissue, or process throughout the body. The brain is what controls the release of these hormones. So excesses or deficiencies in hormones can cause certain diseases. The urinary system, moving on from that, controls the fluid balance in the body. It is what filters and eliminates waste. It also helps control the pH balance in your body. And this includes the kidneys, the ureter, the urinary bladder. Your fluid balance and your pH balance are incredibly important to your body, and this helps with that. Your genital system, so this is what controls your reproductive processes. The males, you have your testicles, the epididymis, your vas deferens, your prostate gland, seminal vesicles, and the penis. And then for females, obviously we have the ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, cervix, vagina. These are all part of the genital system. Your life support chain. So all cells in the body require oxygen, nutrients, and removal of waste. The respiratory and circulatory system are going to be carriers of these supplies and waste. If interference occurs, cells become damaged and dies. Do we remember what lack of oxygen in the body is called? Yeah. So, or, I guess that wasn't the right way, I wanted to word that. So you have anaerobic metabolism, so your body is doing all these functions with enough oxygen and air, and then you have anaerobic, or without. So A is without, and that's where you're going to get a lot of this waste production. So your cells use oxygen to turn nutrients into chemical energy through metabolism. You have adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, which is used to store energy throughout the body. Oh, I was getting ahead of myself. Your aerobic metabolism is what uses the oxygen, and cells switch to anaerobic metabolism whenever the oxygen is limited or not there. The study of functional changes that occur when the body reacts to a disease is what is known as pathophysiology. So, respiratory compromise can lead to hypoxia or hypercarbia. Some factors that impair your ventilation, you could have a blocked airway, an impairment of the muscles for breathing, physiologic obstruction of the airway, such as asthma, or any other factor that could contribute. Some factors that can impair respiration, changes in the atmosphere, high altitudes, impaired movement of gases across the cell membrane, things like that. So some effects of respiratory compromise on the body, your oxygen levels are obviously going to fall and your carbon dioxide levels are going to rise. Your respiratory rate is going to increase. Your blood becomes more acidic. And the brain sends the command to the body to breathe. So this is where your respiratory rate is going to increase. Your body wants to blow off the carbon dioxide. Shock. This is what occurs when organs and tissues do not receive enough oxygen. It is categorized into several types depending on what the cause is. Like I said before, this is what we're going to consider hypoperfusion. So effects of shock on the body, your level of oxygen supplied to the tissues is going to fall. The cells are going to engage in more anaerobic metabolism. severe metabolic acidosis is going to occur. Your baroreceptors initiate release of epinephrine and norepinephrine. Your heart rate is going to increase, and your interstitial fluid is going to move into the capillaries. That's a lot of things to say that your body does not like what is going on, and everything is going to increase because it is freaking out. It's going to say, I need oxygen, so I'm going to breathe more. I need to move this oxygen and blood around my body, so my heart rate is going to increase. And it's going to start bringing everything from the outside in toward the middle. So that's where all the vital stuff is, right? Impairments of cellular metabolism. This is going to result in the inability to properly use your oxygen and glucose at the cellular level. Your cells create energy through anaerobic metabolism. So this can result in metabolic acidosis. Your brain cells cannot use any alternative fuels other than oxygen, so cellular injury may become irreversible. So, which of the following are found in the retroperitoneal space?
Kidneys.
The kidneys. The space behind the abdominal cavity, the spleen, liver, and stomach, they're all going to be located within that area. The cartilaginous tip of the sternum is called what? Good job. A person with bilateral femur fractures has what? Yes. So bilateral meaning both sides. Good job. Femur is where? Cool. The most prominent landmark on the anterior surface of the neck is what? See? Good job. This is your Adam's apple. Insulin is produced by what? Yep. What connects muscles to bones? I'm hearing a C. What? C. Tendons are what connect muscle to bone. Ligaments are bone to bone. Joints connect the ends of the bones. What is a normal resting heart rate for an adult? Yep, 60 to 100. Left atrium of the heart receives what? Oxygenated blood from the lungs? Yes. Sounds like you guys read. What is the largest part of the brain? The cerebrum? Yep. Which of the following statements about red blood cells is false? I'll let you read through them. What did you say? C? Correct. And what's that one going to be? White blood cells? Yep. Cool. Take a break. I'd say 10 minutes.